In the dead of night, somewhere in the narrow blue throat of the Strait of Hormuz, a US commercial oil tanker was moving quietly through one of the most strategically critical waterways on the planet. No alarms, no warning, just the low hum of engines and dark water pressing against the hull on both sides. Then, in a matter of seconds, dozens of heat signatures erupted from the shoreline like a pack of wolves breaking from the tree line all at once. Iran had launched a coordinated surprise attack from multiple directions simultaneously. Less than 90 seconds later, US forces triggered an emergency response, and the entire Hormuz battle space collapsed into a level of chaos that nobody on the Iranian side had calculated for. And that was only the opening move. Minutes into the engagement, Iran's first assault wave materialized in full. A fleet of Zulfiqar-class fast attack craft launched from camouflaged coastal bases near Teshim Island, pushing their engines past 50 knots. These high-speed vessels fractured into small tactical clusters, converging from multiple angles to encircle the vulnerable commercial tankers like fingers closing around a throat. A US Navy Arleigh Burke-class Flight 3 destroyer, already on patrol and blockade duty in the Gulf of Oman, detected the anomaly almost immediately. The warship's AN/SPY-6V1 radar cut through the heavy surface clutter with precision, isolating the faint contact signatures from the surrounding civilian traffic. The moment early target detection was confirmed, the destroyer's Combat Information Center elevated to its highest alert status, activating the Aegis Baseline 10 combat system to begin automatic tracking of the surface threat. High above the strait, a Boeing P-8A Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft served as the supreme eye in the sky. Its AN/APS-154 multi-mission surface search radar began constructing a real-time joint battle picture, tracking the macro movements of deployed Iranian forces and transmitting secure telemetry data across Allied networks without interruption. Minutes later, the situation deteriorated sharply as the Zulfiqar patrol boats closed the distance to a genuinely dangerous range for the commercial tankers. Exploiting their extreme speed advantage, the Iranian crews executed a pre-calculated tactical maneuver, secretly deploying smart mines directly into the active shipping lane. Had those mines detonated, the destructive yield would have been more than sufficient to breach the double hull of a supertanker, triggering catastrophic fires and explosions while permanently sealing one of the world's most critical maritime choke points. Faced with this asymmetrical threat, the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer was forced to sacrifice its freedom of maneuver, performing aggressive course corrections to position its 9,000-ton hull as a physical shield between the Iranian craft and the oil tanker. But the sheer volume and multi-axis geometry of the Zulfiqar groups began to saturate the AN/SPY-6 radar, forcing the Aegis combat system to divert enormous processing capacity toward tracking defensive targets rather than offensive ones. To break the tactical deadlock, a Sikorsky MH-60R Seahawk maritime attack helicopter lifted off from the destroyer's flight deck. Operating the AN/APS-147 multimode radar, the Seahawk flew low over the waves, staying beneath the horizon of potential coastal threats. The crew rapidly mapped the precise coordinates of the newly deployed mines, while simultaneously establishing a continuous, high-resolution tracking solution against the aggressive surface fleet. The Seahawk transitioned instantly into a predatory platform. The co-pilot gunner locked onto the lead elements of the Zulfiqar formation and released a barrage of AGM-114 Hellfire missiles alongside BAE Systems' APKWS laser-guided rockets. The two lead vessels of the Iranian convoy were obliterated in spectacular secondary fuel explosions within seconds. Despite those severe losses, the remaining Iranian groups adapted with surprising speed, executing high-velocity evasive maneuvers, deploying smoke screens, and deliberately exploiting civilian maritime traffic to mask their heat signatures as they pressed deeper into the heart of the convoy. Some time after the initial engagement, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps activated its shore-based Krasuka series truck-mounted electronic warfare system. a heavy-duty passive radar and jamming platform. The system flooded the battle space with high-power radio frequency countermeasures, saturating the AN/SPY-6 aboard the destroyer and severing the Link 16 tactical data network. Under the cover of that electromagnetic chaos, Iran quietly introduced the next phase of its asymmetrical strategy, deploying a squadron of Gulfiqar-class midget submarines into the deep trench corridors of the strait. Sensing the severity of the disruption, the command crew immediately coordinated across all available assets. High above the electronic fog of battle, the P-8A Poseidon used its advanced electronic support measures to isolate critical signals, while its multi-mission sensors maintained comprehensive operational awareness across the entire combat space. Scanning the periphery, the P-8A's acoustic processor detected subtle underwater anomalies, identifying acoustic signatures consistent with the presence of submerged vehicles. The command team suspected immediately that Iran had committed multiple submarines to the engagement. The MH-60R Seahawk was redirected toward the most probable coordinates without hesitation. Working in precise coordination with the P-8A, the Seahawk dropped a dense pattern of AN/S SQ-53G acoustic sonobuoys into the dark water below. The sonar system confirmed almost immediately the presence of an Iranian Gulfiqar-class midget submarine, a diesel-electric vessel specifically engineered for ambush operations in shallow, confined waters. While the Seahawk meticulously held the submarine's position, the crew simultaneously monitored the active sonar fields on their tactical displays in real time, ensuring the coordinates were locked so that follow-on countermeasure units could intercept after the engagement concluded. With a secure acoustic lock established, the Seahawk transitioned from search to attack, releasing a lightweight Mark 54 torpedo. Its active sonar head acquired the hull of the Gulfiqar-class submarine, and in an instant, a deep, high-pressure underwater detonation erupted from the seabed, vaporizing the enemy vessel entirely. Realizing their stealth advantage had been completely stripped away, the remaining Gulfiqar submarines abandoned their approach vectors, performed emergency crash dives, and retreated toward Iranian territorial waters. At that moment, to prevent further escalation and reinforce the outer defensive perimeter, a Lockheed Martin F-35C Lightning II stealth fighter, launched from a nearby carrier strike group, arrived on station, extending the coalition's sensor reach with its low observable sensor network. Tactical pressure intensified as the surviving Zulfiqar fast attack craft skillfully evaded the initial defensive cordon. Using the strait's complex terrain to their advantage, they pushed deeper into the commercial shipping formation, sustaining a continuous and immediate asymmetrical threat to the civilian tankers on the surface. The F-35C Lightning II responded immediately, switching from passive surveillance to direct attack mode. Using its advanced sensor fusion architecture and the AN/AAQ-37 distributed aperture system, a 360-degree spherical infrared sensor network wrapped around the entire airframe, the F-35C cut through the remaining smoke and radar interference with ease. The DAS automatically tracked and classified all surface targets, allowing the pilot to rapidly lock onto the remaining Zulfiqar vessels and neutralize them with a barrage of AGM-179 joint air-to-ground missiles, fracturing the coordination of the surface attack entirely. Simultaneously, Iran escalated by launching a large wave of Shahed 136 loitering munitions from mobile launchers positioned along the Iranian coastline. The drones flew at extremely low altitudes, generating a severe saturation effect that overwhelmed the AN/SPY-6 digital radar processor aboard the destroyer. Amid the chaos, the P-8A Poseidon maintained its role as the fleet's primary airborne battle manager, sustaining a unified combat picture and precisely identifying the coastal launch points feeding the new drone swarm. At that precise critical moment, an EA-18G Growler electronic attack aircraft operating from a nearby carrier entered the combat space to provide electronic protection for the coalition's decision-making chain. It activated its jamming suite using AN/ALQ-218 tactical receivers mounted on its wingtips alongside two AN/ALQ-99 tactical jamming pods, deploying high-intensity localized radio frequency countermeasures across the battle space. The electronic attack immediately severed the command and guidance links of the Shahed 136 swarm, causing dozens of the suicide drones to lose synchronization, break formation, and spiral harmlessly into the sea. Amid the intense electronic and kinetic chaos, the MH-60R Seahawk continued its low-altitude continuous loops around the perimeter of the commercial convoy, functioning as a critical forward targeting node. The Seahawk used its secure data links to push raw, unfiltered surface telemetry directly to the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer and the F-35C, allowing coalition forces to resynchronize their combat systems and re-establish a coherent tactical picture. For a brief moment, US forces appeared to have re-established firm control over the volatile situation. That control was violently shattered when the IRGC deployed its ultimate tactical trap. Along the coastline, Iran activated its entire strategic air defense radar network simultaneously. The Krasuka system simultaneously pushed its transmit power to maximum, using digital radio frequency memory technology to generate thousands of phantom targets across the battle space. This digital deception was deliberately engineered to lure and trap coalition aircraft into a deadly coastal engagement zone. Without warning, the F-35C Lightning II was simultaneously locked by the long-range fire control radars of S-300 PMU-2 and Tor M1 systems. Inside the cockpit, the acoustic environment erupted into a chorus of approach warnings. The F-35C was forced into a series of violent high-G defensive turns while deploying flares to break the tracking chains closing around it. As electronic warfare escalated across every frequency band, the coalition's tactical data links degraded severely, isolating individual platforms from the shared operational picture. Cut off from the broader network, the F-35C pilot activated the aircraft's air-to-air electronic warfare systems in coordination with the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, doing everything possible to pinpoint the exact location of the elusive jamming nodes along the coast. But the price of that tactical distraction was nearly catastrophic. A small surviving cluster of Shahed 136 suicide drones penetrated the outer air defense corridors during the confusion. They closed the distance rapidly, locking onto the commercial oil tankers with lethal intent. With the defensive perimeter breached and threats now operating inside the convoy's inner ring, the entire formation faced the possibility of catastrophic destruction. The battle reached its most critical inflection point. The EA-18G Growler shifted roles, releasing AGM-88 HARM missiles from beneath its wings to hunt the Iranian electromagnetic emitters. The missiles accelerated to destructive velocity, obliterating the core mobile transmitters along the coastline and collapsing the enemy jamming network entirely. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, Flight 3, emerged immediately from the digital saturation and blindness. Its AN/SPY-6 radar re-established a clean tactical tracking solution, sweeping the combat space with high resolution. As the data links resynchronized across the network, the warship's Mark 15 Phalanx close-in weapon system switched to autonomous engagement mode. Its 20mm Gatling cannon fired 4,500 rounds per minute, destroying the remaining Shahed 136 aircraft at close range before they could reach the tankers. Simultaneously, the P-8A Poseidon detected that the majority of UAV control data and tactical communications were converging on a fortified underground complex near Bandar Abbas. After Link 16 connectivity was fully restored, the F-35C Lightning II re-entered attack range from the southeast. Using its 360-degree DAS system to penetrate the residual smoke, it released two GBU-31V3B JDAM precision bombs onto the underground command facility, triggering a massive secondary explosion that collapsed the complex entirely, and sent intense columns of fire erupting from the ventilation shafts into the night sky above. With that command brain destroyed, the surviving Iranian aircraft lost all coordination capability. The Zulfiqar ships retreated in visible panic. The Ghadir submarines fell silent. The United States had firmly re-established complete dominance across the strait, and the commercial convoy continued its passage safely through the dark water. This scenario worth sitting with is not just the technology or the tactics, it is the margin. The margin between the F-35C breaking those radar locks in time and not breaking them. The margin between the EA-18G Growler holding the electronic line and failing to hold it. The margin between the P-8A Poseidon maintaining continuous multi-domain awareness and losing the picture entirely. Strip away any one of those elements and the Strait of Hormuz becomes something very different that night. It becomes a choke point sealed by fire, and the consequences of that would ripple far beyond the military engagement itself, touching fuel prices, global supply chains, and the kind of ordinary daily life that most people never connect to a naval battle happening thousands of miles away. The side that controlled the sensors and dominated the speed of decision-making commanded the outcome. That lesson is not complicated, but whether the margin that made it possible will always be there when it matters most, that is a question worth thinking about.